Second time's the charm. After he lost the first floor vote in the Speaker's race by 20 votes, House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan had this to say to reporters.
We're going to keep going. I've had great conversations, great discussions with our colleagues, and frankly, no one in our conference wants to see any type of coalition government with Democrats. So we're going to keep working, and we're going to get to the votes.
How many ballots are you willing to go through?
Until we get a speaker. We got to have a speaker, and it can't be some deal with the Democrats. I mean, American people don't want that. They elect Republicans in a majority, small majority. I get it, but we got 200 votes in the first ballot. I think that maybe even is more than what Kevin got back in January, or right about where Kevin was. Gus Billirakis is a vote for us. That's 201. We've had good conversations. We're going to keep working.
The 20 Jordan holdout Republicans met after the vote failed, and per reporting in Punchbowl News, they plan to hold strong in their opposition to the Freedom Caucus leader. Meanwhile, on the other side of the aisle, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who Democrats nominated for Speaker, earned more votes than Jordan. Let's watch.
The tellers agree in their tallies that the total number of votes cast is 432. Of which the Honorable Jim Jordan of the state of Ohio has received 200 votes. The Honorable Hakeem Jeffries of the state of New York has received 212 votes.
The next vote is scheduled for 11 a.m. this morning, right now, as we are taping. It's going on or about to happen. So simple math there. All the Democrats voted for the Democrat, Hakeem Jeffries. The Republicans overwhelmingly voted for Jim Jordan, but there's 20 holdouts. That's not enough. And so we're back in this situation with really no end in sight. And the question now becomes, does Jim Jordan withdraw once again in favor of someone else? But there's no consensus candidate. There are people, the Matt Gaetz faction really wants Jordan. And I think many of the holdouts feel that, like, if they let it be Jordan, they're letting the people they don't like win. Like, it's a personal struggle now. Like, I can't let you win, so I just have to not vote for this person.
Yeah, I also wonder if there's some squeamishness about Jim Jordan being so vocally supportive of Donald Trump's election-like claims at a time immediately after 1/6, when so many other Republicans actually were kind of timid about what was going to happen to the Republican Party in the wake of the riot at the Capitol. So the fundamental issue here is that with a very, very closely Congress, it's almost impossible for anybody without a decision to have unanimity to win. And fundamentally, the very nature of these Freedom Caucus holdouts is that they are voting as a caucus, as a bloc separate and apart from the mainstream Republicans, and there will be no unanimity. So the idea that you can just keep reshuffling the chairs in the Titanic and find a person that is going to appeal to everybody except for these, all it takes is 4 holdouts, is, I think, a little bit naive. At the end of the day, you're going to have to give these people something.
Well, we do technically have an interim speaker. Mm-hmm. That is Patrick McHenry, who was selected by McCarthy to be the fill-in person if something ever went wrong and happened to McCarthy, which is exactly what did take place. So he now has these technical powers. They are limited. There are some Republicans who want to empower him to effectively be a de facto speaker. Now, these people think this is necessary basically in order to send a giant aid package to Israel. Mm-hmm. Again, I would just remind everyone who thinks non-interventionism is important, who thinks spending American tax dollars at home rather than abroad is important. The dysfunction in the House actually helps keep that status quo or prevent the spending from occurring. It's not actually terrible to have this dysfunction right now. In fact, I think it's good.
Biden has said he'll ask Congress for about $10 billion for Israel.
Yeah.
So there apparently, Axios reported that there has been some back and forth. A senior House Democrat speaking on condition of anonymity said that there had been some conversation about the idea of voting to expand the interim speaker's powers. They have been talking about ways to constrain his powers, to not say, okay, then Patrick McHenry is now just Speaker of the House and can do whatever Republicans want to do, perhaps only allowing bills to pass with a 2/3 majority, which guarantees there has to be some buy-in from Democrats. But it's not clear It's not clear that plan, that idea ever went anywhere beyond this.
And McHenry has said he has no interest in being the speaker, but again, because they don't have to take a vote on him, he's already in this interim position. That's a massive benefit. So we're going to have to keep following this. We were going to have, actually, Representative Matt Gaetz is slated to appear on our show. He was going to be on today, but had to participate in this vote. But we're looking forward to having him back at a later date to get his take on everything that's going on.
Yeah, I think there's been a shocking deficit of pointed questions about what it would take to get the holdout members of the Freedom Caucus on board. That really is the only question. Yeah. And to the extent
right now it's not holdout members of the Freedom Caucus, right? It's the Freedom Caucus is behind Jordan. It's holdout members right on the other side.
The fundamental
of the establishment.
The fundamental argument that's being made by the establishment is that the Freedom Caucus, that Matt Gaetz is just, looking for attention, that he is trying to pursue his own political gain and doesn't care about the interests of the country at large, and that this is all very performative. If you think that's true, then you should be asking very pointed questions and nailing him on what do you actually need to get on board with the rest of the Republicans. And I do think there's an unwillingness to do so, in part because Gaetz has been hitting on some really popular and populist ideas that it will be hard for Republicans to hear and to kind of elevate as the real sticking points in this issue, and then to decline to support. I do want to keep in focus that Gaetz initially pointed to things like wanting to have single issue up-down votes, which are popular. And even some Democrats have said, some progressive Democrats said that they think would be valuable as well.
And are the entire point of the chamber. Is how it should just be structured. To have members of Congress proposing legislation, discussing it, debating it, and then taking a vote on it.
And then, of course, the issue of the war in Ukraine and funding it endlessly, which has now just gotten endlessly more complicated by messaging from the White House that says, and from Janet Yellen, who says, we can do both. We can afford two wars. I'm going to try to lump this $10 billion Israel package along with the Ukraine package and make people do those two together, which, again, points to the value of having up-down votes if you are one of these people who would say support aid for Israel and not aid for
Obviously, I've seen
Ukraine.
There's a lot of people in the Democratic Party saying that we need to support both. Then there are also people in the Republican Party. I've seen the neoconservatives are making the case that what's happening in Israel, we need to urgently support Israel, and that shows we must fight. We must support the good guys everywhere in the globe. It's just as urgently important to fund Israel as it is to fund Ukraine. My suspicion is these developments between Israel and Palestine will actually further deplete Republican voter support for Ukraine in the Ukraine-Russia conflict, because you have some people who take my position, don't want to, spend money, give foreign aid to either country. Then you're going to have some people who think Israel is important and we should do that. And given that this is going on, we can't spare the money for Ukraine. So I actually think the neoconservative position is going to be even less popular than it was before.
Yeah,
we'll find out.
I do wonder if tying these together is going to have the opposite effect of what I think some establishment folks on both sides of the aisle want, which is to make people even less sympathetic or less.
There are people who don't want to fund either,
Israel.
and there are some people who think Israel is special and should be treated special. Again, not saying that's my view, but that is a view on the right. I think the view that America is responsible for defending injustice or supporting governments that are aligned with us, or we think are in the right all over the globe, everywhere. That's the job of the American taxpayer, to bankroll their security efforts. I don't think that's a very popular position on the right. It's much less popular than Republican elites think it is, which they get reminded of every couple of years when something happens, or there's an actual discernible backlash among the voters, or a figure emerges who takes on that assumption and attacks that assumption and is wildly popular among Republicans, like Trump, like Ron Paul before that, like some of these more insurgent-minded people, your Matt Gaetzes, et cetera, your Tucker Carlsons. So we will see.
Yeah, we will see. I keep checking. The roll call vote started about 4 minutes ago, but we don't have any news about how this went for Jim Jordan this time around. Stick around, though. We will have more Rising for you right after this.